Okay, come on, start. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillahi wa bihi nasta'een. Nahmadu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasulil karim amma ba'd. Allahumma rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So Alhamdulillah, we mentioned that this week we were going to deal with some of the masail, the fiqh that relates to the ibadah of Umrah, insha'Allah. So, first of all, what is Umrah? What is Umrah? So Umrah is to visit the Baytullah in Makkatul Mukarramah other than at the time of Hajj, in order to perform specific acts of worship subject to specific conditions. So Umrah is to visit the Baytullah other than at the time of Hajj. You cannot perform Umrah during the days of Hajj. Because during the days of Hajj, if you are there, then you are required to perform Hajj. And in order to perform specific acts of worship, which we will deal with, subject to specific conditions. So that is a technical definition of what Umrah is. Then what is the ruling, the hukum of Umrah? So Umrah is regarded as fard according to the Shafi'i madhab. Umrah is regarded to be fard. And what is the reason for this, the justification for this? First of all, the proof of this from the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advises us in Surah Baqarah, wa atimul hajja wal umrata lillah, and complete the Hajj and the Umrah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this instruction, in this verse, Allah ta'ala included the Umrah along with the Hajj. The main difference between the two is that the one is time specific. Time specific meaning it can only be performed at that particular time of the year. It can only be performed during those dates, and it has got certain additional actions or certain additional rituals to it in comparison to Umrah. Umrah, again, you can perform at any other time besides the time of Hajj. Hajj you can only do at the time of Hajj. Umrah you can do it any other time besides the days of Hajj. And then there's hadith of Hadrat Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, said that she asked the question to the Prophet ﷺ, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is jihad compulsory upon the woman? Must the woman also go for jihad? And then the Prophet ﷺ replied, yes, but they do the jihad without fighting. They do the jihad that is without fighting, Hajj and Umrah. So from this it is understood that the question was, is an action compulsory? Whether it is fard. So the Prophet said yes. But in the case of women, their jihad that is compulsory upon them is Hajj and Umrah. The next question is, how many times is Hajj and Umrah compulsory upon a person during his lifetime? How many times must you go? We'd like to say as many as possible. In terms of the hukum of Sharia. Now again, the conditions that makes it compulsory upon you, that is what we're going to discuss after this. You understand? So one thing is that it is compulsory, but only when the conditions are met. There's a shurut that must be met. So how many times is Hajj and Umrah compulsory upon a person during his or her lifetime? So Hajj and Umrah are compulsory only once during a person's lifetime. Only once. The other occasion when it is compulsory upon a person to perform Hajj or Umrah is if that person has made an oath. You've made another. You've made an oath in that you made dua that, oh Allah, I make an oath that if you grant me this, then I will perform Umrah. if you grant me this, then I will perform Hajj. If you make a nadhr. So if, for example, a person he made a job application, and then he makes dua to Allah to grant him this job. And then in his dua, he makes an oath to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if Allah grants me this job, then I'm going to perform Umrah. So even if that person has already performed Umrah, to fulfill this oath becomes compulsory upon him. So he therefore needs to fulfill that oath by performing the Umrah. If he does not do so, then there's he needs to what they refer to as an expiation. He needs to free himself from that oath. And for that, there's certain actions that the person would then have to do. All right? Which might include having to fast for 2 consecutive months. So, except if the person makes an oath to do so, then he must do so in order to fulfill the oath. Any other Umrah after this will be considered to be a Nafil Umrah. Or any other Hajj after this would be considered to be a Nafil Hajj. Because the person has already complied with the compulsory requirement. Here's my... no. I'm looking for my mouse. Okay. Now the next question is, when must Umrah be performed? When must the Umrah be performed? Is that the right one? Yeah, how many times? When must Umrah be performed? According to the Shafi madhab, one needs not perform Umrah immediately when he becomes of the means, and it may be delayed. One, in the fiqh, this is discussed as that it is al-fawr or it is al-tarahi. Al-fawr means, for example, the Sharia stipulates certain conditions that a person must meet in order to perform Hajj or Umrah. Now, if the person then meets those conditions, then it means it is now compulsory upon him at that time to fulfill that obligation and go for Hajj. That is al-fawr. That is according to the Hanafi madhab, for example. So, if we come into the months of Hajj, and I have all the requirements to perform Hajj, then I must perform the Hajj. If I don't perform the Hajj, I'm considered to be sinful. According to the Shafi'i madhab, the person is not obligated to do so immediately. You can delay the Hajj. All right? So according to Shafi'i madhab, one needs not perform the Umrah immediately. In other words, it's not obligated to perform it al-fawr. You can do it bit-tarahi. Tarahi means to delay something. So you are allowed to delay it, although this is discouraged. Because you know what your condition is now, and you have the means now, but you don't know what lies ahead for you in the future. So, although it is not compulsory, according to the Shafi madhab, for the person to perform the Umrah immediately, it is encouraged for the person to do so because he has the means. And the reason why it is considered not to be compulsory, as it is compulsory once in the person's life. It is compulsory only once in the person's life, which means that you have the entirety of your life to fulfill this obligation. The problem is, you don't know how long is your life. You don't know how long your life is. So therefore, although it is considered to not be compulsory for you to do it immediately you become of the means, it is recommended and strongly encouraged for you to rather fulfill it instead of delaying it because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So therefore, why it is allowed for you to delay, as the person's entire life is the time during which he may do it, but the requirement is he must have a firm determination to do so. And then, if you have this firm determination to do so and you pass away, it becomes a debt, and that means that somebody else must be given that money and fulfill that on your behalf. You know what? We have the Badal Hajj or the Badal Umrah also, because Umrah is also wajib. Now, very often we don't consider, you know, if it comes to the Hajj, we have the Badal Hajj, but we don't consider the Umrah. That is also compulsory, and if I did have the means to do so, and I didn't do so, then that is also technically a debt against my estate. Ma? Oh, the teacher is on the phone. So what are the shurut of Umrah in order for it to become wajib? When does Umrah become wajib upon a person according to the Shafi'i madhab? Number one is Islam. The person must be a Muslim. So therefore, if the person is not a Muslim, then essentially no act of our Sharia is compulsory upon that person. Number two, the person must have aql. The person must be of sound mind. The person must be of sound mind and intellect. If for any reason the person is not of sound mind, then that does not mean that the person cannot perform Umrah. It doesn't mean that the person, if he is Muslim and he is not of sound mind, that does not mean that the person cannot perform Umrah. It just means that upon that person himself, it is not compulsory to perform Umrah. Because so, for example, you know, a small child that has reached the age of tamyiz, the child is older than 7 but not yet baligh, then such a child can perform Umrah. Such a child can perform Umrah. In fact, it is considered that if a child that is tamyiz performs Umrah because he is with his parents, they go for Umrah and they take the child along. Then if that child is between the age of essentially 7 and baligh, normally around about, let's say 15, just as a ballpark figure, and that child does all of the rituals by himself, then that child will get the reward as if he's performed that Umrah himself. If the child is younger than that, and the child goes with the parents, and with the assistance of the parents, the child performs all the requirements of Umrah, then the reward for that child's Umrah goes to the parents. So if I perform my own Umrah whilst I'm an adult, I get the reward. If a child between the age of 7 and bulugh performs it, but the child is aqil, intelligent enough to be able to do it by himself, because from that age we're required to have our children perform salah. So like the child is able to perform salah by himself, he's also able to perform the Umrah by himself, unassisted. Then under those circumstances, that child himself gets the reward because he did the action. But if it is a child younger than that, and it's considered at that age between birth, infancy, and 7, the child would not be able to do these actions by himself. So under those circumstances, if the child is, you know, in the Umrah along with the parents, then the reward for that will go to the parents. And the child must have reached the age of bulugh. So thus aqil and baligh go together, and together they form the requirements of taklif, for a child to become mukallaf. So when we say that the person has become mukallaf, it basically means that the person is intellectually, you know, capable, and the person has reached the age of bulugh, where either of maturity, in the case of girls and boys, different factors that we consider, whether they are baligh or not. But if they've met those requirements and they are aqil, then we consider them to be baligh. So therefore, if a child is extremely clever, but that child has not yet reached the age of bulugh, then we don't regard that child to be mukallaf. And if the child has reached the age of bulugh, but the child is mentally challenged, where the child does not have full mental capacity, then under those circumstances, then that child is also not considered to be mukallaf. Both of these requirements must be met together in order for the person to become mukallaf and to be burdened with any responsibility in deen. The fourth requirement is that the person must have the quality of freedom, hurriya. Now, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they had the practice of slavery. So if a person is a slave, then the person cannot perform the rituals of Hajj and Umrah because he requires the consent from his master. You understand? But if the person is free, then he requires nobody's consent and the person can perform the rituals of Hajj and Umrah. Also, when it comes to a lady, when it comes to the matter of compulsory actions like Salah and Hajj and Umrah, it is not that she requires the husband's permission to actually perform it, but she needs the husband's approval for the time when she wants to perform it. So, for example, the husband and the wife needs to travel from Cape Town to Worcester. And now the husband, he wants to leave just before Dhuhr in order to reach Worcester at a certain time. So now if that wife now wants to perform 1 o'clock as Dhuhr, she wants to stop to perform Dhuhr Salah, and the husband doesn't stop, then under those circumstances, the wife will be required to listen to the husband. Not because she needs the husband's permission to perform the Salah, because that is an act that is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An action that is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for that the wife does not need the husband's permission. But for the time that she wants to do it, for that she needs her husband's approval. So a lady, she's got the means, and she now wants to go for Umrah next week. But the husband is not able to accompany her next week, and he now says to her, no, don't go next week, go in September, because then I can accompany you. So she can't now insist that she wants to go in August, because she requires also a mahram to travel. And then she wants to say that, no, but I'm going to travel with some other ladies. But that is that is only the position if the husband is in totality not available. So the issue of the consent and freedom in relation to the wife, it is not a matter of requiring the husband's consent to do the act, but rather with regards to the time that she wants to do it. Okay, then very importantly also, the safety to travel. The route must be safe. That is a requirement of our Sharia. Because we are not allowed to put our lives in undue danger. Not allowed to put our lives in undue danger. So at the moment, we know that things are very challenging in the Middle East. However, there is, as far as the journeys for people for Umrah is concerned, not yet a direct threat to this. So for now, for the most part, it is still safe. However, if things do escalate, then we will be required to postpone our Umrah because of this requirement. Because we are not meeting this requirement of the safety of the road. And then number 6, one must have the required means. Now, means does not refer only to money. Means does not refer only to money. Means also refers to the mode of transportation. Number 1 is the finances. Number 2 is the mode of transportation. Whether the required mode of transportation is available. So if things go wrong, there will be no flights. There will be no flights. So now the means of transportation is not available. There are other means. I mean, you can hire a camel, you can, if you want to take that route. So there might be other means, but the normal preferred route and means of transportation would not be available. So under those circumstances, again, it will not become wajib upon you, because there will be no means for transportation. And then also the ability to travel. Because the person could be having an illness that prevents them from traveling. Or sometimes the person, due to old age, is unable to travel. So under those circumstances, these are the requirements in order to determine whether or not Umrah is wajib on the person. This does not mean that the person can't go for Umrah. I'm old, so doesn't mean now I can't go. It just means it is not compulsory upon me to go. You understand? If the road is not safe, it doesn't mean that I can't go. I can go even if the road is not safe. But it just means that now it is not compulsory upon me to go. So these 6 requirements is to determine whether or not it is compulsory upon any particular person. And every person has to look at these requirements individually. Obviously, we understand every person that goes is Muslim. What is the mental capacity of a person? Individually. Whether the person is baligh, individually. Whether the person is free, individually. And again, when it comes to females, with regards to the approval of their husbands for the time that they want to undertake that journey. Whether it is safe, you understand, under the particular circumstances, depending on the mode. Sometimes by air, it might not be safe, and then by road it is possible. Or you can take a ferry, because you can take a boat from all the way from Cape Town all around until you get to Egypt, and then from Egypt you take a ferry as well. So it is possible also to travel by boat, if that is the route you can travel. But then again, is it safe? And then whether you have the required means in terms of money, in terms of transportation, and also in terms of your ability, depending on your medical condition. So that is why there are 2 types of means. Means refers to 2 types. One is mubasharatan. Mubasharatan, this refers to the required means for you yourself. For you yourself to be able to undertake the journey of Umrah in terms of the necessary wealth, health, and safety to travel. Alright, the safety of traveling. Then ghair mubasharatan means you for some reason are yourself not able to go, but you can provide somebody else with the means to go, but on your behalf. You know, like how we have the Badal Hajj, you can do Badal Umrah also, but you can do it during your lifetime as well. A person who's already performed Hajj and Umrah, you would like to go, but you don't have the means to go. Then you provide that means to the person to go and perform it on your behalf. So, غير مباشرة, this refers to the means required to enable someone else to perform the Umrah in one's place, like the Badal. Because that's actually what Badal means. Badal means in your place. If you are unable to go due to ill health or due to old age, because that person will perform the act, but the reward will be for you. The reward will be for you. And this can take place whether during one's lifetime or after your death. If you want, you can stipulate this in your will as a wasiyah, that I made an intention to go for Hajj and Umrah, and I consider it a debt upon myself. You understand? A person came and he asked the Prophet ﷺ, "O Prophet of Allah, my mother made intention to go and perform Hajj, but she passed away before she could perform the Hajj. فَحُجُّ عَنْهَا, should I perform the Hajj on her behalf? Should I perform the Hajj on her behalf?" Nabi Sallam asked this person the question, if your mother had any outstanding debts for monies that she owed to people, would you pay those debts on her behalf? He said, "Oh Nabi of Allah, of course, I would pay it. I would settle the debts that were due by my mother towards other people." So then Nabi Sallam asked him, if you were prepared to settle the debts that your mother owes to other people, what about the debts owed to Allah? What about the debts owed to Allah? So therefore, perform the Hajj on her behalf. So Hajj, if it is known that the person had the intention, then that becomes a debt against the estate, and money must be taken out of the estate in order to fulfill that. So therefore, we can also stipulate that I had the intention to go for Umrah. If anything happens to me before I pass away, then I require that Umrah to be performed on my behalf. You can say that I have to do it also, no problem, inshallah. Okay, so the features of Umrah. So Umrah is divided basically into 3 categories of actions. Umrah is divided into 3 categories of actions. Alright, so the Umrah consists of obligatory actions, which we refer to as, now we've already spoken about the shurut. No? The shurut are the conditions that must be in place in order for the Umrah to become wajib upon you. So now you are going to perform the Umrah. Umrah is wajib upon you, now you're going to perform the Umrah. So in the actual performance of the Umrah, certain actions are obligatory. You must do these things. They are referred to as arkan. Then there are actions which you are required to do, which is referred to as wajib. Now normally for us, we speak about arkan and wajib as the same. But in Umrah and Hajj, there is a slight difference between the two. The explanation is here as well. And then we have the recommended actions, which are the sunnah actions for us to perform. So now, with regards to arkan and wajib, so both arkan and wajib are necessary, with the difference being that in the case of discarding one of the arkan, that is the difference between an arkan and a wajib. If you leave out one of the arkan, the Umrah becomes completely invalidated. It becomes completely null and void. All right? Whereas in the case of discarding a wajib, the Umrah becomes spoilt, but you can save it. The Umrah becomes spoilt, but you can save it by way of a penalty. You actually have a choice. If you leave out the wajib, there's actually only one wajib in Umrah. And if you leave it out, you've got one of two choices. Number one is comply with that action and do it. Or number two, you pay a penalty. Number two, you pay a penalty. So as far as the obligatory actions, the arkan are concerned, there are 5. There are 5. And if any one of them are left out, the Umrah becomes null and void. Null and void. All right? So what is the first? Number 1 is the intention. The niyyah of entering into ihram for Umrah. Remember when we discussed previously, I don't know who can remember, but inshallah we'll discuss it again, because you see that this is also largely linked to ihram. So we mentioned that ihram is number 1, the clothing of ihram, number 2, the intention of ihram, and then number 3, the state of ihram. So in the case of men, there is specific clothing that they need to put on, which we call the ihram. For the ladies, they can essentially wear any clothing. Then the person must actually make an intention. So the intention is either that the person is donning the ihram for the purpose of Umrah, or he is donning the ihram for the purpose of Hajj, one of the two. So in the case of the Umrah, the intention must be specific, that the ihram is being put on for the purpose of Umrah, and then the person goes into the state of ihram. Now we will find that when it comes to the state of ihram, whether for Umrah or Hajj, the violations are the same. The rules for the state of ihram, whether you are for Umrah or for Hajj, is basically the same. All right? So whether I make intention for Umrah or make intention for Hajj, once I have made that intention, then the restrictions and the things that I am prohibited from doing all become the same. So according to the majority of scholars, entering ihram for Umrah comprises of making the intention and wearing specific clothes in the case of men. In the case of ladies, there is no specific clothes and they can essentially wear any clothing. The next, which is a rukun, you must do this, is the tawaf. It is the tawaf. So according to the majority of the scholars, the obligatory number of rounds of tawaf is 7. Sab'ata aswat. I go around so going around 7 times is 1 tawaf. There's one person read, you must make tawaf 7 times. So he counted 7 times 7 is 49. So he went around the Kaaba 49 times. And he did the same with the sa'i. He understood that 7 times up and down is 1 sa'i. So he did that 7 times. 49 times around the Kaaba, 49 times up and down between Safa and Marwa. and then he had to go on a drip after that. Okay. So according to the majority of scholars, the obligatory number of rounds of tawaf is 7. So going around the Kaaba 7 times is 1 tawaf. So you must only go around how many times? 7 times, because you do 1 tawaf. You do one, those 7 collectively is the tawaf. So you only need to perform 1 tawaf, but 1 tawaf consists out of 7 circumambulations, they call it in English, but we call it 7 aswat, sabata aswat. 7 times around is the tawaf. So it is a condition that prior to making the tawaf, a person must enter into ihram. All right? So the person must, this is now in the state, this is now the tawaf for your umrah. A person can do normal tawaf also, nafil tawaf, sunnah tawaf, but this is the ihram, this is the tawaf that is a compulsory rukun of your umrah. So because it is related to your umrah, you can only do so in the state of ihram. Other tawafs, you don't have to be in a state of ihram, except for umrah and hajj. You understand? You don't have to be in a state of ihram, and also for wada, you also don't have to be in a state of ihram. But for the tawaf of your umrah and the tawaf of your hajj, you do that in the state of ihram. So therefore, it is mentioned here that you must first enter into the ihram before you can do the tawaf, which, as we understand, that the ihram, this is done at the miqat. Ihram is done at the miqat because a person must come into the haram in the state of ihram. So the person must enter into the ihram for umrah, meaning he must have made the intention for umrah. And it is like a condition for the person on umrah to observe all the general conditions of tawaf. And the condition of tawaf essentially is, when you start, one is that you make the intention, you put on the ihram for umrah. Then when you are going to start the tawaf, there you must make another intention, and this is the intention for you to perform the tawaf of umrah. You are now making intention that you are making the tawaf of umrah. And in addition to that, you must circumambulate the around the Kaaba without going inside the hatim. Without going inside the hatim. Now you know the horseshoe area of the Kaaba, which is called the hijr, or the hijr, was also referred to as the hatim. Now that area used to be the same height as the original Kaaba. But then when they rebuilt it, they only built it to about waist height. Now that is essentially part of the Kaaba. Now you have to do the tawaf around the outside of the Kaaba. Around the outside of the Kaaba, which means that during your tawaf, you cannot go inside the Kaaba. Now previously, and that is why they closed it up, previously, there was an opening between the cube area and that, and then people would cut in between. Now once you cut through that, your tawaf is spoiled, because now you've gone inside the Kaaba and you're no longer outside the Kaaba. That is also why when you do your tawaf, you can't put your hand on that wall. It's height, it's your waist height. You can't put your hand on that wall when you do the tawaf. Because once you do that, you are also considered to have entered into the Kaaba, and you are now no longer outside the Kaaba. So you are not allowed. So at all times, you must ensure that you stay outside the Kaaba. It is not sunnah, but it's considered to be permissible for you to touch the Kaaba while you are, because Nabi Sallam kissed the Hajar al-Aswad and touched specifically the Hajar al-Aswad, you are allowed to kiss and touch. But the precaution is that the Kaaba now is, filled with attar. People put all kinds of attar and oils on it. So therefore it is preferred not to touch it whilst you are performing your tawaf. Because tawaf, the next requirement is that you must be in a state of purification. And then the other is also tayammun. Tayammun means that you must walk to the right side. anti-clockwise. So the Kaaba must at all times be on your left side so that you can walk in the anti-clockwise rotation around the Kaaba. You must be in a state of tahara. Now, for the purpose of sa'i, tahara is not a requirement. But for the purpose of tawaf, so if your wudu breaks, then you need to go and renew your wudu, and then you need to carry on with your tawaf where you stopped. So if I completed 2 rounds and then my wudu breaks, I go and I take wudu, I come back and I continue with my 3rd round. I don't start over. I don't start over. And the same with if my hand is on the wall of the hatim, of the hijr, then also that particular round is invalidated, not my entire tawaf. So if I come past, I've done 3 or 4, and then I get the opportunity, I come nice and close, and then I put my hand on there, and then I wipe it on there for the barakah, that one becomes invalidated, so I must cancel that one, and then I must add another one. I need to add another one, inshallah. And then also to be free from impure substances on the body, and to ensure that the aura at all times remain covered. All right? So according to the majority of the scholars, all the above are conditions for the validity of the tawaf. Then the 3rd action that is compulsory when doing umrah is the sa'i. It is the sa'i. So it is an obligatory element of the umrah. According to the opinion of the majority of the scholars, the sa'i includes going between Safa and Marwa 7 times. So 7 times is from Safa to Marwa is 1. From Marwa to Safa is 2. So it's not, up and down is once. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that means you will end by Marwa. So remember, these are all compulsory. No? The difference between tawaf and sa'i is that for the tawaf, tahara is compulsory. For the sa'i, tahara is recommended but not compulsory, which means if after you have performed your tawaf, you go to perform sa'i and your wudu breaks, your sa'i is still correct, even if you don't have wudu. Then number 4, shaving the hair or shortening, halq or taqsir. Taqsir means to shorten, halq means to shave. So in the Shafi school, it is obligatory to remove at least 3 hairs. Shafi school, minimum of 3 hairs must be removed, but it is preferred for a man to shave his head. For the men, the khalq is preferred when performing umrah, except for a mutamatti'. A mutamatti' is for a person who's joining between the umrah and the hajj. So now this person, he's going to do ihram twice. So he's going to have to come out of ihram twice. So therefore, depending on the time duration in between, if you're doing the one today and you're going to start with hajj the following day, then it is encouraged for you to rather do taqsir and not halq. And then you do the halq after you do the tawaf and the sa'i for hajj. Then you do the halq for the hajj. However, if you, like in our cases, we normally come there a week or so before the time, and your hair would have started growing back by the time you do your hajj, then no problem, you can do the halq, and then you can do the hajj and do halq again. As for those people who don't have hair anymore, in regards to the men, they have a permanent halq, then in their cases, the only thing that happens is the blade is taken and just rubbed over the head, symbolically with the intention of doing the halq. Otherwise, some people, sometimes the man has got the kufiya on, you understand? And then when he takes off his kufiya, you see he actually only just has that hair here at the back. So he then has to cut and shave that hair also. No? Allahu a'lam. So, and then it is recommended for women to only shorten their hair. They only clip a small portion of their hair. And it is prohibited for them to shave it, since this is considered to be a mutilation. For women to shave their hair is considered to be a mutilation, unless there is a medical reason for a lady to shave her hair. She's not allowed to shave her hair. And then number 5, it is the order of precedence, the tartib. All right. So this is not a separate element, but includes the manner of performing the above 4 elements of Umrah. However, it is considered obligatory. Why is tartib obligatory? Because neglecting the order of precedence is tantamount to neglecting any of the pillars of Umrah. So you can't perform the Umrah and not be in a state of Ihram first. You can't perform the sa'i before the tawaf. You can't cut your hair before you've done anything else. So this sequence, going into Ihram, performing tawaf, performing the sa'i, cutting the hair, that sequence is compulsory. That sequence is also compulsory, so therefore, this tartib is also a rukun. And if you change the tartib, then your umrah is null and void. Your umrah is null and void. So with regards to what is wajib in the umrah, how's our time? Okay. With regards to what is wajib in the umrah, so the wajib element of umrah is entering into ihram from the proper miqat. What is wajib is for you to enter into ihram from the required miqat. So if left out, the person must return to the miqat. I mentioned earlier that you've got one of two options. Either you do the wajib or you have to pay a dam of slaughtering a sheep. Right? So you can therefore, if you've crossed the miqat, you didn't realize you crossed the miqat, but you were not in the state of ihram, then you can go back to that miqat. You can go. Now, if, for example, a person comes from Medina and now he comes into Makkah and says, hey, I didn't put on my ihram, he can't go to Tan'im. He can't go to Tan'im. He must go to Dhul Hulayfa. And then he must come in from there with ihram. No? Because the miqat for the people that comes from where you came from, you must go to that miqat. Once you've come in ihram and now you've taken off you've performed umrah and taken off your ihram, thereafter you can go either to Tan'im, to Masjied Aisha, or you can go to what was the other miqat we went to now? Ji'rana. You can go to Ji'rana. You can go to one of those two miqat. But there's other miqat as well. We're going to deal with that again as we carry on, inshallah. Right? So, and if the person does not go back, you're thinking, no, it's going too far for me to go back, then the person must pay a penalty. Right? If it is not done or it is not possible, then the person must pay a penalty, and this penalty is the slaughtering of a sheep. So some sunnahs of the umrah, which essentially relates to the ihram. Essentially relates to the ihram. Alright? So there are sunnahs that relates to the ihram, and then we've got sunnah actions that are related to the tawaf. So with regard to the ihram, it is sunnah for a person to take a ghusl before putting on the ihram. Right? Even if the lady is in a state of haid, it is still sunnah for her to take a ghusl. And then, in regards to cleanliness, which is to trim the nails, and to clip the mustache, and to remove unwanted body hair before the ghusl. Then after the ghusl, to perfume the body. Right? To apply scent to the body, not to the clothes. To apply to the body for the men after a ghusl. And then with regards to clothing, for the men to wear clean and clean or new. No? It doesn't have to be new, as long as it's clean. And it must be unstitched white garments, the izar and the rida, which is the izar is the bottom, the rida is the top. For the ladies, they can obviously wear any clothing. And then to do the talbiyah. The talbiyah, which is to recite the labbaik. No? Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. And to do so aloud continuously after making the intention until the person starts with the tawaf. But this is for men to do so aloud. The ladies, they do so softly, quietly. Then the tawaf sunnah, so the sunnahs of tawaf, right? It is the ittiba. Ittiba means to uncover the right shoulder. Ittiba means, so then what happens? Normally you would have the ihram over your shoulders, but when it comes to the tawaf, ittiba means to open the right shoulder and then throw the ihram over the left shoulder, and then to continue performing the entire tawaf like this. All right? Placing the upper garment under the right arm and over the left shoulder for men only during the tawaf of Umrah. So this is only during the tawaf, but you do so for the entire tawaf. And then ramal, all right, which is to walk with a fast, sturdy pace with small steps, but this is only for the first 3 circuits of the tawaf. So ittiba is for the entire tawaf, ramal is for the first 3. If this is not done, it does not invalidate the tawaf. Remember that sunnah actions does not invalidate the action. And then kissing or touching the black stone, if the person is not able to kiss it, then you make istilam. Istilam is you kiss your hands and you point it towards the Hajar al-Aswad. Or touching it and then kissing one's hand at the start of each circuit, if it is easy, if it is possible for the person to do so. Another sunnah is after the tawaf, praying 2 raka'ats of voluntary units of salah behind the maqam Ibrahim, immediately after finishing the 7 circuits of tawaf. So those are the sunnah related to the tawaf. Then we come to the violations, of the rules and what has to happen. So according to the Shafi'i madhab, violating the rules of ihram during umrah due to forgetfulness or ignorance or coercion. You either genuinely forgot, or you genuinely didn't know and then somebody makes you aware of it, or you are forced to do something which you are not supposed to do in your ihram, generally incurs no penalty or sin. Why? Because generally a person is regarded to not be accountable for something that he does forgetfully or for something that he is forced to do. All right? And in the case of ignorance, the person generally didn't know. But that obviously is why we should try to learn. Now, if the person made an effort to learn, but there is something that he didn't learn, then obviously the person is excused. The person is excused. So then there will be no penalty or sin. Under such circumstances, if the person does become aware, it is encouraged for the person actually just to give some sadaqah. Just to give some sadaqah. All right? But if done intentionally and without a valid excuse, violations require expiation. You must expiate, you must give a fidya, which typically offers a choice of 3 options. A choice of 3 options. You've got one of 3 things to do. Number 1 is you fast for 3 days. And that fasting has to happen whilst you are in Makkah. Or alternatively, you feed 6 poor people in Makkah. Or you sacrifice a sheep. You sacrifice a sheep. So that is the same as we are speaking about here. So this is now the general expiation. And this is the fidya of choice. All right, the fidya of choice. So for intentional violations like cutting your hair, clipping your nails, wearing stitched clothing in the case of men, covering the head for men, ladies cover their head, no? Using perfume whilst in the state of ihram, applying oil to the head, then the Shafi school applies the verse of compensation in Surah number 2, Surah Baqarah, verse number 196. And this gives the pilgrim a choice. There is takhyir. Takhyir means that you have khiyar. You have a choice between which one of these 3 things you are able to do. And number 1 is, as I mentioned in the previous, that you fast for 3 consecutive days. Number 2, you feed 6 poor people. You feed 6 poor individuals and you give each one of them a mud, which is approximately just over half a kilogram of food. It's the amount of food that can go between 2 hands. All right? 6 people. Or alternatively, you slaughter a sheep. Now, in most instances, people prefer to feed the people because fasting over there is not so an easy task. And to buy a sheep and have it slaughtered is also a bit more expensive than rather feeding 6 people. All right? Now the major violations, all right? There are essentially 2. The one being relations between a husband and wife, and number 2 is hunting or harming the animals whilst you are in a state of ihram. Right? And with regards to the hunting, it refers to wild animals. Doesn't refer to animals that you are carrying with you. So if you've got sheep, you travel from Makkah to Medina, and you've got your chickens and your sheep with you that you intend to slaughter for you to use as food, it doesn't refer to those animals. This refers to animals that are roaming freely, that doesn't belong to you or doesn't belong necessarily to any person. You can't go and hunt them. Because when you are carrying animals with you for the purpose of food, those animals you're not hunting because they are domesticated animals. So this does not refer to the slaughtering of domesticated animals for the purpose of food. It refers to wild animals that you are going to hunt. So you're not allowed to hunt, but you are allowed to have animals with you that are domesticated for the purpose of food. So with regards to the relations, so if a pilgrim engages in full marital relations before completing the Umrah rites, right? So if you're in the state of ihram and you engage in full marital relations, you haven't performed tawaf, you haven't performed the sa'i, you haven't cut your or shaven your hair. In other words, you are still in the state of ihram. This is after going into the state of ihram and before coming out of the state of ihram. Anywhere in between, and you engage in full marital relations, then the Umrah is invalidated. The Umrah becomes null and void. However, you must still complete that Umrah. You are still required to complete that Umrah so in other words, you did tawaf, so between tawaf and sa'i something happens between you and your spouse, then you must still do the tawaf and you must still do the sa'i, you must do all of the actions of Umrah, but it is considered invalid. But you must still complete it, and after that, you must do another one. All right? So you must complete the rituals. You must make up the Umrah by way of qada for it immediately. And you must still also, in addition to that, you must sacrifice a large animal, either a camel or a cow. And you must also make tawbah. You must also make tawbah. Now, in the case of hunting an animal, killing wild land game requires compensation equivalent to the value of the animal, with options to offer a comparable livestock animal in charity or feed the poor. So, what this means is, if you've killed an animal, then a person who is appointed as a judge will have to determine whether on the size and value of that animal it is equivalent to a sheep, a cow, or a camel. And if that judge then determines that the animal that you killed is equivalent to a sheep, then you must slaughter a sheep. If they decide that it is equivalent to the value of a camel, then you must slaughter a camel. So in other words, you can't kill an animal and then say, wait, I'm going to slaughter a sheep. No, it's not automatically a sheep. You must give in compensation what is equal or considered to be equal to the animal that you have hunted and that you have killed. So that, alhamdulillah, essentially are the rulings with regards to Umrah. Now I'd like to know, please, are there any questions? Next week, inshallah, we'll just do a recap again of the whole issue that we had with regards to the ihram. What is sunnah, what is allowed, what is not allowed, etc. What does the rulings of Umrah? But this was now essentially with regards to the rituals of the Umrah, and some of it obviously related also to the ihram. Anybody got any questions from amongst the men folk? No questions? Okay, so next we're going to go into greater detail just with regards to ihram, in terms of the kind of clothing, the kind of shoes, that all of that kind of stuff we're going to do next week. Any questions from the ladies' side with regards to what we discussed today? To say again, what? We're going to deal with that next week when we do with the ihram, what is allowed, what is not allowed. We're going to deal with that, yes, inshallah. Any other questions? Yes? Yeah, it goes onto the skin, not onto the clothing. Yeah. But you must just remember that there are limitations that when it comes, or restrictions when it comes to what kind of perfume ladies are allowed to wear, even in ihram. My experience has generally been that you are actually better off with a good roll on, a good underarm instead of perfume. You understand? Actually better off with that. Any other questions? Because then I see we've got about 25 minutes left still. So if you are okay with it, then we will conclude on that now for today. Because I actually need to go to Grassy Park to pick up my daughters. So I didn't intend to finish this early, but alhamdulillah, we didn't also have so much to cover, alhamdulillah. So next week, inshallah, we'll go into more detail with regards to the rules and the regulations of ihram. So I think that is a good follow-on for the discussion that we had today, inshallah. So and also again, if there's any questions that relates to the discussion we had today, then next week please make a note of it and make sure to ask it in the class, because there might be other people that's sitting here that have the same question but might not want to ask also. And again also, when it comes to wanting to learn, then we shouldn't be shy to ask. And alhamdulillah, I think by now most of the people who are attending the class, I'm hoping would be comfortable enough with me in order to be able to ask a question, inshallah. So if that is then where we conclude, inshallah, jazakumullah. Allah Ta'ala bless you all. May Allah SWT make it easy for you all with your arrangements for Umrah. And inshallah, there's some people going from our community on Monday. Mullah Munib Khan and his family. I think there are 4 couples, 8 people, inshallah, that will be leaving for Umrah from here, from Bonteheuwel, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, we make dua, Allah Ta'ala makes their journey easy. And importantly also for all of us is to make dua that Allah Ta'ala protect the Haramain. Because we know there's a lot of instability in the Middle East at the moment. So may Allah Ta'ala protect the people who are there. And may Allah SWT grant that all of this unsavoriness and misunderstandings and stuff, become removed. Because very often the issues between governments are not shared amongst the people. And people just want to live. But governments have their own political agendas and interests and so on. And then their conflict, causes everybody else under them to suffer as well. May Allah Ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanallah wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun mursalin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullah. Okay, this is actually quite nice.